Get off of Facebook
Dude,
Live.
you are a column of light to be standing in one of the most dense epicenters, if not the epicenter. When I was there,
Oh my God.
I was communing every day and every night. I was told that was like the heart of the world. Like, I don't know how to exactly say it, but obviously that there was a
Yeah.
huge entrenchment of, let's just say, the powerless powers that be, that
Yeah.
force. But as a counter to that, there was it was like a huge epicenter of a centralized center of pure power, like pure portal power. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways that I learned that, prior to going to New York City, where I never wanted to go, I think I told you this when I met you, I had left for the third and final time Houston, where I had been doing a lot of grid work in the energy corridor, right? In the international energy corridor, bushland, right?
Yeah.
So I would always take these walks. I lived next door to a cemetery. It was a very natural setting. It was on a bayou. It was very, very big. It was my own little universe, my own little sanctuary. And then I would go for walks, out in nature and such. So I went to Arkansas first, where I live now. Ironically, I came to the same town. Go figure. And so it's a very natural setting, mountains and rivers and streams and lakes. And so I'm very much into the organic and the elemental. So when I went to New York City, it was like holy shiitake mushrooms. Like I'd been working with energy, dark and light. I'd made my peace. I accepted all aspects of dark and light in the universe. But when I went to New York City, it was like the street came out of me. You know what I mean? Like the street guy came back. The street for 2 years, like, good block, bad block.
Yeah, totally.
Now I get on, and even getting on the subway, and I'm grabbing that pole, and there's all that oil from everybody's palms, and I'm thinking germs, and so I really had to go to another level to I thought, oh, you're out here and you're seeing reptilians and you're seeing animals and you're seeing angels and out in the park and in the cemetery, and you're bringing that into your heart and equalizing it. But in New York City, with all that energy, it was even deeper, which was like really cool because it was a mix of organic, although you have to look for the organic, and of course the whole matrix, mecca that it is. So we're back. We got what do we got here? We got 26 people in the house. I think I'm glad we got the website up because I'm noticing that we're getting suppressed. And when I say suppressed, we're still coming on, but nobody's getting notified, and it takes 30 minutes for the room to fill up.
Wow.
But we're going to go ahead and, we haven't had a lot of replay action, but I've noticed that we've been under the radar, and I don't know how long that's going to last. So that's one of the benefits of having the website. You can watch these programs on the website because we don't know when that day will come, that will be the only place but we're going to go and do the groundwork so that anybody and everybody can archive their video and text files, have a social community, and of course broadcast from a place that there's no censorship or oppression, because we will own everything except for the stream, the internet service that comes into the house. So, well, welcome back, Stephen. Sorry about the interference. Do you have any idea who it was?
Oh my God, it's so funny. I tell you, no, it's crazy because I was literally just on a Facebook live call and Zoom, no problems at all. As soon as we go on and it took forever. It took that long for my computer to reboot and actually start Chrome again. And I was trying it on my phone, and my phone wasn't even letting me dial into your site. And I use Zoom on my phone too, and it's no problem. So I was like, all right, this is I mean, it's happened a few times when I've done certain shows with certain people. Yeah. I mean, even in Staten Island, I did like a cable TV show out there. And as soon as I started talking about like the temple is Set and like the negative ETs connected with Set, literally, now this is like a professional cable TV studio. The camera room, everything crashed. All the cameras crashed. The computer technicians like, we never seen this in all the years we worked here ever happen like this, and like one of the psychics in the room felt like this dark energy come in, so we had to do a little like a banishing ritual first. 15 minutes later, then everything rebooted.
So Yeah, I mean, like I said to the audience, to the brothers and sisters, I was like, um, "There's Dina Divine. Hey, Dina.
Yeah, I
I
know.
yeah, I know you do. Yeah, she just sent us an incredible gift, and
Uh,
her partner. We need to get him back on. I think Morgan's reached out to him. Uh, I was telling everybody, hey, I don't really believe in the interference thing. We've had a lot of it here, and what I do notice is anytime we have it and we stick with it and we do the show, it's always an incredible show. So to me, the message has always been push through it. It's an
sure.
illusion, and don't let it have power over. And then because of the level of the experience, the alchemic experience can be much greater if you push through it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was going to say. And that, but that if anyone had interference of the people that I've met, it would be you.
Yeah.
So
So,
give people a little idea of why that may be. And I know you're not buying into that. I'm just saying. But like for instance, the MyLab,
yeah, no, I mean,
just MyLab, and then anything else you might think is pertinent and that might be unique as we try to build a bridge between disclosure and starseed circles.
sure, yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, because I mean, I would say that one of the biggest things going on is that there's a lot of deliberate attempt to suppress star seeds from fully awakening and fully connecting and maturing in the way that they could possibly be. That there's more resistance going on with that. At the same time, there's more support coming in from the higher positive realms. But there's definitely, the power structures that be have taken a very strong vested interest in trying to distort some of the energies coming around us to and from this planet, with different artificial grid systems that they created to kind of reinforce like their idea of the matrix, to basically buy more time for their system. And in terms of my story, I mean, I'm 49. I started meditating when I was 16. I had early contact with positive beings that were both extraterrestrial and also from the sun. I go into some of that in some other videos on YouTube, solar mysticism video, where I remembered how to look into the sun when I was 21, and that kind of blew me open, third eye wise and Kundalini wise. Now that was in the middle of like Newark, New Jersey, to put it in context, right in the middle of the ghetto. I'm having my like biblical experience of reuniting with these, 6-dimensional light beings that are coming down and blasting me. Then that was shortly followed by black helicopters, which was my first experience of them, and this is back in the early '90s. So that kind of started me getting on the radar, what I call more like the shadow government area.
And just for clarification, I know because you told me, but you had this experience. I think you said you had it on a rooftop at one time or another in the ghetto, and that's when so there was a correlation between your level of connection and illumination and the black helicopters coming by. That was
pretty much. I mean, on one level, I invited it because I had heard that there was a facility near Newark where some of these black helicopters were being parked at, and they would, at that time, this is before the internet, right? They only get stuff from like conventions and magazines, and you would hear that there were stories of UFO abductees who had been harassed by the helicopters. And so, I was always curious about that because I originally was a physics major at NYU before I shifted course. So I kind of want to test out the parameters of this so-called technology. So after I made contact with these higher light beings that were coming down from the sun, normally they put this golden dome of light over me for privacy and protection. And I was like, well, what happens if I decline that privacy protection and see, whoever has technology to potentially scan the area, would they be able to pick up on the signature of these higher beings that are opening up this kind of portal space over me? So I wanted to test out that theory. So basically, within 10 minutes of doing that, and I felt the dome lift up, then the first black helicopter came and made a circle around. And I was used to seeing all sorts of air traffic there. I never saw that before. So I tested it out several times in several days because I wanted to make sure that they were really there because of the work I was doing. And so they started flying like directly over my building, like about to land on my roof. Like that's how low they were above me. So I was like, oh shit, all right. Then they started flying over. After that day, my dad was driving me to work, and they were flying over the car, like a couple of stories above the car, then over my job. And so it became like a little bit of a pattern, and that kind of started spooking me because I started feeling really heavy energy coming from the helicopters, and I was like, oh, these are really nasty. So anyway, I started asking for protection and privacy again, and it stopped. But then like a few months later, it popped up again. One woke me up literally in the morning. It flew over the park level. I was living adjacent to a park with a parking lot in between my building and that area. And it literally flew 5 stories. It literally flew above treetop level one story above me. It turns, the helicopter's in a parking lot, like literally right next to me, pretty much one story above me. I'm like, holy shit, what are you gonna like land in a parking lot here? And so I stick my middle finger up to them and give them a little greeting.
Oh, that's a good one for staying under the radar, right? Yeah. We were talking about that this morning. Dr. Joe talking about, he's in Liverpool, and of course all that stuff's going on in the UK, and he was just saying, like there's certain levels of attention we don't have to attract to ourselves when we still go about and do our work, which I'm sure you've learned after all this time, because you're 49 now. This started happening
not when I was like 20, 21, 22. So it's been a lot of years, but those first few years it was more on and off with that. And then it was in 96, 97 when I taught my first metaphysical class upstate New York. That was literally the day that they snatched me at the underground facility up there.
No, tell us about that. No,
yeah.
That was you're saying like pass the butter and boom. It's like that's a normal thing for you. We're over here. No, so you're downloading stuff. You said this was 90. So you're 49. You're 10 years younger than me. So you're born in 70. Okay, so you're late 20s, mid to late 20s, and you're upstate New York, and you are
in Norwich, New York.
Now you're presenting it as a speaker.
Yeah,
as a course.
Not even about that. I was just teaching a workshop on like the Kabbalah, and also like on like the grid system. We were doing some group activations. First time we're doing some group work, and so I was just teaching a class on that. And the organizer of the center had introduced me to a friend of hers named John. Well, actually, that is his first name. Funny enough, but he starts talking to me right away about how he was doing healing work on people by channeling these praying mantis ETs, but it didn't feel like the good ones when he started talking about them. And he said that he was a former psychic warrior for the government, which of course made my ears go even more perked up. And then he mentioned about it, and he basically was setting me up as a precursor with all the conversation. He mentioned about an underground base nearby and about UFOs and some battles in the area.
Oh, wait a minute. That's interesting. So kind of a micro of the macro. So are you saying that he was an apparatus of that machine, of that machination?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
but I was just going to point out, because I think it's fairly common knowledge that the powerless powers that be, or whatever you want to call it, have to tell you what they're doing, right? So he was essentially doing the same thing. It was just at a local level instead of a mass level. That's all.
Yeah. No, exactly. And then I asked him, I'm like, are you still doing any work for the government? He goes, well, I do some contract work once in a while. And I come to find later on the contract work was setting up people to be taken to the facility. I know in a really screwed up way.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize what happened until, so after that, so basically I went to go hiking after my workshop with him in the woods out there. This is out by this is about a small town called Norwich, New York, which is about 40 minutes from Binghamton. And the area we were in was called Bowman Lake, which is where he was going to take me hiking, which I find out later on.
Bowman Lake.
Yeah, which is where the facility's at.
I was going to say, all right.
Yeah, it's an artificial lake there. Yeah.
Have you
heard of it, Larry?
Yeah. Well, I can't recall. I'll have to tap in eventually, but I don't know if it happened there or in something I researched or something. But I remember it was artificial. I remember that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, but basically, right after the trip, I couldn't identify any normal missing time at first, but I felt really depressed. I didn't want to go back upstate again, and I loved going up there before that. I even became allergic to honey from New York State, which was very bizarre. And I kept having these weird dreams of being taken somewhere, but then I'd people experimenting on me. But I thought it was just me being paranoid. And I'm like, whatever, I pushed it away. There were a series of events that happened, but in between that, it wasn't until 11 years later, and during that 11-year period from 96 to 97, 96 to 2007, I had experienced a lot of weird events, to put it that way. And
okay, that was my question. I think you're getting there, but for 11 years, you didn't have total recall. You just had subtle, almost like intuitive, like we get with intuition, or like when they speak. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just comes they're not even sound bites. They're just like impressions. So you're having that for 11 years. Did you at any time during that 11 years go, man, something's not right?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I started having more direct, a lot more energetic harassment that was coming on a pretty much daily basis from different types of groups, and I started remote viewing back on who was remote viewing me, and I was like, what the fuck? Why am I all of a sudden getting so much negative attention here? And then in 2001, I had my first physical, let's put it that way, meeting with a guy from the NSA. He was actually I was working part time back then for like Jersey Transit, managing one of the facilities, like a parking area where people take buses to New York City from North Bergen, and became like a little spook central there. And
Spook Central.
Yeah, this NSA guy comes literally wearing the NSA jacket, like the way the FBI would wear a jacket with FBI in it. He has the NSA with the NSA jacket on, And I'm like, I never see you guys advertising. And he comes up to me, and we start talking, and then he's being a little quiet first, and then he just gives me his information and wants to set up a meeting with me. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of weird, but
Did he say why?
I mean, he basically said he was kind of like internal affairs for the NSA, and that he was investigating abuses in the agency, and that my case fell in the range of potential abuse that he was investigating.
Did you even know that you had a case?
Well, I mean, I suspected because I'd already seen energetically their signature, and I've been getting projections of technology, like low level, like non-lethal, like warfare projections that I was tracking, like back in 97, 98. They were trying different systems out, and one of them was they were projecting, which is very common. They use it now, but it was kind of like mood management. Well, they'll project out like different negative frequencies to your brain, basically to make you feel a certain emotional state. And so, and I'd felt this was very clearly defined because I was fine 1 minute. My guides warn me, they're like, prepare for an attack. And I'm like, I didn't listen.
So this, I just want to be clear. So this guy was coming to you. This is at the end of that 11-year period.
No, this is in 2001, literally a month.
Oh, it's dear. Okay. So this is, okay.
Yep.
So
literally a month after 9/11, he shows up. I mean, I'm like, okay, are you guys busy? Why are you meeting with me?
so he was basically telling you that you might have been a target, and that inside of the NSA, which let's just say had had ideals that were moral and ethical, blah blah blah. That there was he was investigating internally the abuse of the program, basically, and you were possibly one of the people that was targeted. Okay.
Yeah, and literally during the first, during the actual meeting, because he basically set up a meeting with me like in Bryant Park, which was a nice little place. Well, he originally wanted to meet somewhere indoors. I'm like, no, I'm not meeting indoors with you anymore. Let's meet out in the public, out in the park. I've watched too many spy movies, to go inside somewhere that I couldn't have access escape routes. So, I ended up meeting with him, and he's there with his little jacket on, and he's looking around like nervous for the first half of the meeting, and then smoking a cigarette like the cigar man from X-Files.
No kidding, right?
Then he gets like more chilled out. And first he admits right away when I ask him about that technology of them using, technology to basically harass people electromagnetically. And he's like, yeah, we use it all the time on people. He was very nonchalant about it. I'm like, well, do you need a local transmitter? This is before, remember, all the big cell phone networks got out too. And he goes, no, we use satellite to target any person we want worldwide with the signal. And he goes, yeah, we're using the microwave bandwidth. He confirmed. Basically, they basically took advanced brainwave states of people, and they're able to piggyback that digital fingerprint on a microwave and send that out to people specifically, so it'll give you that emotional state. So he mentioned that the suicide program and the depression program was a very common one that they would use a lot on people, which was very, very fucked up, very messed up,
Let me. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah,
I think we might need to do another show soon, because we're not only going to run short on time, but there's so much we can talk about, because you are, to me, I've been told, over the last month, especially, because in my connection, with my team, I'm hearing be the bridge between these different communities.
Yeah.
Are part of the team that's bridging it. Now I look at you and I see a huge potential and opportunity, because you, like I said, you're one of the few that I've met that's got like this balance. You don't have 2 legs, you got 3 legs in 3 different worlds.
Yeah.
But what I was going to ask you was, anyone that's researched this stuff, not even to mention people that have experienced it, that have recall like you, there's some pretty strong stuff going on. like what I mean by that is, okay, recently, a few days ago, I read a quick headline. Who is it? India. Is it India and China? Or anyway, somebody has a border conflict, and there was evidence that whoever the opposition was, basically cooked a bunch of Indian soldiers. In other words, the technology to go in and just basically disintegrate them.
Jesus Christ.
Now we know this technology is out there. They could do it in a, I mean, they had what, neutron bombs back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, so there's a technology out there that could absolutely wipe us out. There's plenty of programs out there that there's evidence, if you research, that are like this that you're talking about. Mind control to chemtrails to nanotechnology. So a couple of things, and I want to get your perspective on this. There's a couple of things that come up. One, it would seem to me that there's something that is opposing this force with the intentions that it has, that doesn't allow it to take over total control. Now, that may be our own internal work that we do, both consciously and in dream state, or something else. Okay, that's number one. So that's the one question, or I'm looking for some perspective on what is that force, right? And I guess the second thing is, maybe it's along the same lines. Is it just that we're too powerful, that we're coming into our own, that it can't stop us no matter what is being done? I mean, what's going on with all this from your perspective?
I mean, I definitely think it varies a lot. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people who fall into these projects, who don't necessarily remember stuff, or it can sabotage a lot of people's missions. And I think it has. I've seen it destroy certain people's lives. And I've also worked with a lot of my labs over the years as clients to help them reintegrate and create more of a connection to their starseed self and be able to reclaim some energy, soul pieces, and healthier boundaries between them and
when you say mission, when you use the word mission, are you talking about a starseed's mission incarnated in a human body?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Exactly.
Oh, no. I'm like a kid in a candy store here. Okay. So I'm gonna use myself as an example. We talked about this a little bit. I want to get an idea of what world you've been working in, and that what your role is and what's going on, because I know there's a big chunk of this out there, and we may all be in that field of experience, but we don't recall it. So you mentioned that you work with people that have been MyLabbed. You just made the distinction that if people have gotten thrown off their mission or whatever, the mission being the starseed's mission within the human body. Now, I told you I had an experience, Montauk.
Yes.
I was driving by Montauk, and I started to get all these images, which were both from like 10,000 years ago, a bunch of us around a fire, basically putting up prayer and ritual for this time now, which was kind of weird because it wasn't linear. But the thing that I probably understood less was all these images being in cages, hybridization, time travel, just people doing some fucked up shit. And I'm thinking, why am I getting all this stuff? But it felt so familiar. So if somebody came to you and said, this is what I have, two-part question. Are these the type of people that come to you? And if they do, whether if they are or they aren't, in these cases, what do you do for them?
Yeah. There is a niche of my clientele that have that. I would say that's a smaller niche, but I definitely attract them because they also refer other people to me as well, who they know might have been involved in projects and different support groups that are formed online around that. Now, there's there are some I don't accept necessarily. I don't, I try to work on anybody that wants to work with me, but there's a few times where I had to decline for my own reason, for protection. Partly, there was a few people that were sent as like double agents and were trying to infiltrate, and they were like just not real about it. And I'm like, no, F you, like I'm not going to work with you. Or there were some that were too hot, so hot in the projects that it was not the right time for me to work on them yet. But in general, I do, and it's I mean, as a precursor in general, when I work with anyone, there's a process of energy work with a channel guided meditation process where I then work with different angels, different galactic light beings, different inner earth beings, and their own guides of the person, basically to help them first more in the healing process if they need to clear out blockages, to help them connect to past lives that are relevant.
Yeah.
Because in every single case I work on, every my lab, there's always past lives that we have to clear and address first, because there's karma and dharma involved, and why we attract certain things and how we co-manifest it. So for any, and even for regular, so-called regular people that don't have that experience, a lot of root issues are based in past lives or early trauma. So it's important that we, be able to reconcile that, so we can repeat it, or be able to build a healthier boundary so we can transcend it.
Absolutely. This part of it, we hear a lot on this program, on this platform. A lot of different practitioners, a lot of ways up the mountain, but there's the basic attributes, the basic characteristics of the energy session is what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
In your case, you have, like, I'm trying to understand, what I mean?
Kind of like a top-down perspective. So like a lot of times for star seeds, and pretty much, I mainly attract people that are star seeds. A lot, and especially in cases for some of my labs, it's helpful to help them reconnect more to their galactic self first, from that larger eagle eye perspective, surround them with that energy, and then we can zoom into more specific events that happen to them. Or
no, I got you.
So that way we're not opening up a raw wound or being caught in that cycle of trauma that they first experience, but we can enter it more in a holistic space and be like, okay, well, you have this, this time period, or this agency abducted you, or, you were involved in this or that, timeline project, secret space program. I've seen so many crazy things that I wouldn't have believed until I worked on people who were involved.
Let me give you a scenario, because I remember, as I'm going back to the first 2 years I woke up and I was on the streets, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on. Not only was there this powerful communion with the angelics and so on, but there was this other thing. And I remember specifically tones coming in, and I would be like, oh, there's some kind of alignment there. It felt right. And then other tones would come in. I'm like, no, that's not cool. Now, as an example, I remember when I first hit the streets, I went and hung out at these hippies' house for like 3 or 4 days, and then I had to leave. And I went to another friend's house who was managing a small apartment complex kind of in the ghetto. And 4 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door. I get up off the couch, and there's these 2 dudes there, and I end up throwing down with them, right? Like, it was too weird. And these things would happen. Like, I got in like 8 fights in 7 months, and I'm 50 years old. But it was the way they happened. And I know I was a part of that, and I know ultimately I created that, but there was some other thing working. Like, almost like these people were programmed to come to me and put me through the ringer. And it was a fucking, like a tsunami, like boom, 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 every day, almost like to break my will. Is this the type of scenario that these programs might be behind?
I mean, you could definitely have stalking aspects going on. And I mean, one of the more freaky things that I've seen that, I discovered first through some research, and then I was I had dreams about it, because a lot of my guides will give me information sometimes about things going on, like they'll plant seeds, and then it'll develop over time, where I meet people that have connections to that, both not just my lives, but I've also met a fair number of people in the military intelligence community over the years, several of whom who are positive, weren't involved in stuff, but they had information as well, in a supportive, collaborative way. So it's not like everyone involved, and these groups are bad. There is a fight going on within these agencies, and even when I'm well, that's a little side note story, but one of the technologies I saw was that the company L3, which is one of the big, it's like number 2 or 3 is like defense contractor. They have a technology that they covertly refer to as a partial walk-in technology. They basically discovered that there are basically points in our back. There's think of like a tic-tac-toe pattern, 5 rows of 3 points.
Right.
It's almost like a panel. And these points in the back are kind of like our GPS in time, where through electromagnetic technology that they can manipulate those points and displace a person astrally, slightly off in time, out of phase, long enough so that one of their agents who's out of body can actually step into the person and use that person as a vehicle for a short period of time. And they won't have any memory of it. They'll just have like a blank thing going on, or like, and so that's one of the more dangerous technologies I've seen. When I first really discovered it and tracked it, and I was going on doing some research and and I was doing my like some psychic hacking into L3 first on their website. I literally a few hours later, or was it, yeah, I went to go on the subway here, and I experienced it firsthand where they literally activated somebody near me waiting on the platform. I was talking on the phone to a friend named Philip. This guy who's dressed in a suit, looks like a businessman, comes next to me. First he starts talking to himself. I'm like, what's up with this guy? He doesn't look like the normal type to do that. Then he comes over to me and he goes, oh, I hear you're talking to Philip. Is that my friend Philip who works at Brookhaven National Laboratories? I'm like, what the fuck? It's like Brookhaven has connections to Montauk. So I'm like, wow, what are you talking about?
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, like out of the blue. And then he starts talking about the Montauk project to me. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is really getting kind of weird. Then in a few 10-minute span, he starts talking about topics that I just researched on my computer the past 2 days and dreams I had the past 2 days. He wove it all together. I was like, freaked me out a little bit because I'm like, what the hell is this?
Well, a little bit. How could you even retain your sanity or your optimism after something like that?
And then it gets better. So he gives me his number, and then he gives me someone that he wanted me to contact, a psychic friend of his who was a psychic to a lot of Hollywood stars and was working in different areas. And I was like, all right, this is weird, and then he like stumbles away. And then I run into him one more time randomly on the subway, and then never saw him again. But I contacted the other guy he wanted me to contact. And he lived in this gorgeous brownstone, like in like Little Italy area, like three-story brownstone, looked like a freaking museum. I walk in this guy's house. It was like different artifacts from different cultures on each floor. I'm like, oh, this guy's got like Illuminati vibe all written all over him or something, And he sits down with me. Apparently, this guy has appointments for like months ahead of time. You can never get an appointment. I call him, and I leave a message saying who referred me, and he called me back within minutes and was like, come over tomorrow. So I was like, oh, this is suspicious. Are these guys working together or something? So
now, are you this jovial and happy and humorous that the whole time all this stuff's going on with you?
No, God, no. I've went through my like hell and back period so many times, my crying and freaking out and releasing stuff. But it's because of the spirituality. I had the spiritual center before this happened.
Yeah,
that it was that much more essential to maintain it.
You've got, like I can see there's some information in you, a perspective in you that could actually bridge a lot of things for a lot of people in this field. For instance, okay, these are the standouts for me so far. One is what you refer to as the angelic connection, the higher aspect connection. Then there's kind of two, the starseed connection, which obviously the starseed is a part of the star family lineage or whatever, is a part of that higher aspect complex. And then there's the boots on the ground. Stephen, who's sitting here laughing after this very unique full life experience through 49 years. I guess where I'm trying to go with this is there seems to be a physical experience that includes many things that most of us either don't remember or are not a part of. Okay. And let's just call that the 1%. Let's just call that the Illuminati, whatever. And that those things behind them have what we might call non-physical assistance, or at least higher dimension assistance. But I got a transmission last week, which was really powerful. And they said to me, the Illuminati or whatever, it's out there. Most of you know this. They're speaking like in terms of us, has passed on their strategy generation after generation after generation, knowing that they would not be able to achieve it in someone's particular lifetime.
Sure.
So 1770s, and the Rothschilds put their plan together, and ultimately they wanted a Federal Reserve, banking system throughout the world, which is what occurred.
Yep.
But what they told me was, what you don't understand, and what you guys need to understand, is that you've been doing the same thing. That in a subtle, intuitive, telepathic way, at a minimum, you guys have been passing along this mission, your purposes, all along, and it's a much more powerful stream than anything that was put to serve as the antagonist. Now, having set that up, I'm going to leave you alone and just ask you this question and see where you roll with it. How can any of us gain a more balanced perspective of these pieces? Do we need to, is it important that we connect with the specifics of our starseed mission? One, is it something that we need to look at and analyze? The whole thing I just described. And three, how do we receive and contend with and approach this powerless power, in this finite force?
Sure.
That's the 1% and all of their machines and apparatuses. How do we do that? So there's three questions, but
yeah, it's definitely a process, right? I mean, for me, one of the more important aspects is about us galvanizing our power individually and collectively, right? And being able to create a clear trajectory to the timeline that we want to co-create as a collective. Mission of being starseeds are embodied here. We're emissaries of various planets from higher dimensions that have come here to lay the groundwork so that our teams from up there can come down where at one point, hopefully sooner than later, to be able to build that bridge from the Earth to the Confederation of Planets, so that the Earth becomes part of this larger galactic family that is waiting for us to kind of catch up in that sense. And so that's like the team on the light side, and then you have like the darker ones that are trying to sabotage that or delay it, and because we've had a lot of negative alliances that were made through different families and bloodlines to different negative ET groups and demonic groups, that have tried to, control more of humanity. And so we've also come in to help break those contracts, because a lot of us have past lives that weren't always on the love light side, but also had been infiltrated into some of these darker circles or had done some dark things ourselves, so that when we heal those aspects of ourselves retroactively, it builds a template for us to be able to transcend the impact of the game that they're trying to keep us in now. Yeah. It's like healing that part of ourselves that they are reflecting through that drama that they're imposing on the masses. So it's like finding that unity. And first the heart chakra, love energy is essential through all this. I mean, if I didn't have an open heart chakra, I'd be dead by now. Seriously, it's like the love energy and is the key to accessing everything that's of real power and worth, on an eternal level. And that's their greatest threat. That's why the first thing they always want to do is they want to keep us isolated. Look at what's going on now with COVID dramas and pandemic stuff. There are so many layers to the programming that they do on smaller scales and in bigger scales, but ultimately it's a divide and conquer methodology. Yeah. And they want to shut down, and they want to keep people out of their heart, and they want to keep people in a fear, survival mode, or anger mode. So we have to transmute that and be like, no, we're going to go back and understand what is true value is the heart light.
So it's really all of these programs and apparatuses and everything really has one ultimate objective, and that is basically just to separate you from yourself, which is reflected in separation from mirrors of yourself, and that's the threat, that's the reality, not all the seemingly real, literal aspects of the programs.
Yeah, and it also goes back to being a higher primary objective is their desire to control the evolutionary process, and that a friend of mine who had a friend in the CIA years ago had told her that the main purpose of chemtrails was to negatively affect the genetic structure of humanity in order to slow down our evolutionary process. So this is the lens that people need to start seeing reality through, is understand that these are the bigger objectives that they're working on. Is for a long time has been about trying to weigh us heavily down with more toxic chemicals, heavy metals, create a negative background environment electromagnetically that's more stress related, more fear inducement structures, media, propaganda. It's all been designed to keep this limited narrative going so that we're not able to tap into our fullest power and cross that threshold and realizing that we're here.
Dude, I can talk to you all day long.
This
it's expansive. Let me ask you another question. Chemtrails. Okay. Yeah. And I'm not knocking Trump, and I'm not knocking anybody. I'm trying to understand. I mean, for me, as you're telling me this, it's furthering my belief system, which seems to be rooted in everything out there. Yeah. Is basically representing the same threat and the same offering to me, be good, bad, whatever. It's all right here. But if I look at what you're describing, even the higher aspects that are involved and the things that we're talking about, so much of what's not talked about, it seems to be the experience, like There is a dark and light. There is a two sides. Let's not use dark and light. There's two sides. There's this evolutionary process that's being sabotaged. There's this other side. But at a higher perspective, or maybe the highest, we can look down and go, oh, this is all perfect. This is a great game that we created. But we're here. And I look at something like chemtrails. I look at Trump getting elected 4 years ago. I look at the QAnon narrative, and I say to myself, "Boy, that'd be great. That'd be great." But is that not another program that I would be giving my power away to? Is that not the same threat? Part of the reason that I go that direction is because if I look at chemtrails, he got elected. There was a lot of talk in these light worker circles about the children that are being saved and these people that are going to Gitmo and all of this propaganda out there on the light worker, on the disclosure and conspiracy platforms. You know, Trump is up in Air Force One. He's going to be gone all weekend. And when he comes back, Jesus is going to come down on a chariot blowing smoke rings at his ass. Or we have this huge, this huge assembly of all these military troops on the Chinese border. And all these people are going to be arrested. And it's just a bunch of fucking bullshit because nothing's happening. And I think that's the trick for me is like, okay, maybe that's part of the game. But if you look at chemtrails, okay,
yeah,
why didn't they stop?
Exactly.
Is it because Trump and whoever was supporting him didn't have the power to create those changes? Or is it because everything external is a part of the game and forcing us into ourselves by whatever means necessary?
I would say combination, honestly. I mean, there was a period, at least here in New York, where the chemtrails did slow down a lot for quite a long period of time. Then they picked up again. But there was a good period where we were like, wow, there's a lot less being sprayed now. Which, you know, I don't know exactly why that happened, but we were thankful for that part at least, and until it picked up again. And then you know, I mean, there are different factions that are, you know, for sure that are involved in that. I mean, NSA and CIA are definitely have their input in the chemtrail situations. And I think that goes back into, you know, some of the real things that, regardless of where anyone stands on Trump, you know, the idea of the deep state is nothing new in that sense, but the fact that you have a president calling it out, you know, is important because, you know, that deep entrenched, corrupt, you know, long-term politicians, the people in the intelligence agencies that are working there for decades, the overlay of the corporations that are, you know, really working, you know, with the special access projects, you know, and on the real covert technologies, they've been around for a long time. So, you know, they're the biggest threat, you know, and there was a friend of mine who had worked for FEMA, and he worked for another agency as well several years ago. And he had told me, he came to one of my lectures I'd had at the New Life Expo here in New York, and I was talking about some of this stuff, and he stands up and goes, oh, I can confirm half of what you just said about the NSA mind control technology because I worked for 3 different federal agencies. And he pulls out his ID and stuff, Homeland Security and all these different IDs and stuff. I'm like, wow, you're an interesting guy. You know, he ended up being a really cool guy, one of the few light workers I know in that industry. Cool. And very psychic too, and part of some bloodlines that are quite interesting that I find out later. Anyway, but he mentioned that and what he knew about is his own dramas with the NSA, because he was also aware of some of the more advanced quantum computer systems that the NSA has. And he had done some stuff to, he goes, you know, that we can have, that as they develop their technology, it gets closer to human consciousness, we have the ability to, which I knew already, but it was nice hearing it from someone on the inside. He goes, we could shut down their shit much faster. We can actually short circuit and overload these advanced quantum computer systems because they're working so close to the human threshold of vibration, that our ability to telepathically, psychically influence them is even more potent. You know,
there's a flip side to it. Yeah, yes. I get that. Yeah,
he actually crashed one of them when he was walking by the area, but they ended up tracking him, pulled him in, but then they realized he worked for the FEMA, so they kind of were like, all right, you know, and he's like, as long as you don't do it again, you know, you won't be in trouble. And he developed a friendship with some people in there, and for a little while. And he mentioned that there was a covert office that was part of information operations that was Advanced Metaphysical Studies Office in the NSA. And he said that, you know, that there was like, he said half the NSA didn't really know what the hell was going on. The other half were divided between the white hats and the black hats, right, in terms of the nomenclature. And he goes that the black hats or the negative ones, he goes, have more of their goal to create this new world order. They want the technocratic controlled society, with social engineering and using technology to create more of a herd, cattle mentality. And that the white hats, have the opposite belief. They don't think technology should be used to hurt people. They want to help people with it. And so there's a lot of in-house fighting that goes on all the time.
Is it, in your opinion, is it that way in all of these organizations? I mean, is it like a microcosm of the world and of these dimensions, or at least this dimension? When I'm talking dimension, I'm talking the Earth realm.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would probably say there has to be some degree of that going on. In terms of what percentages, that I couldn't tell you. I mean, and obviously agencies that have access to, especially NSA. I mean, and like DIA, and DARPA, they have much more advanced technology that they have access to than say the FBI would. For example.
It's crazy, man. That's crazy.
So we do a crossover of agencies that have, subdivisions that are dealing with alien technology and alien projects and mind control projects. It's a lot more fascinating in terms of what can go on the politics level internally.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that and I just go, like, was it just a play? Was it just a presentation, just another presentation I don't know,
Okay, so but back to the original point. One thing I heard also about the Q thing from another friend who had friends in Cambridge Analytica, that was, they were indicted back in 2016 during that election period in England, and also I think here because of all the data analytics that they were using to manipulate some of the voting processes. And he got confirmation from some people in there that a few of them were hired afterwards by the Trump administration to analyze the New Age population of America, which they deemed to be about 8 million people, comparable to BLM. So they were fascinated because they said that the New Age population didn't vote a lot. So they wanted to go in there and analyze what were common trends or belief systems, and that would maybe get them to vote or fight for an issue. And they understood that a lot of New Age people have this, my body, like no consent type of thing going on unless you desire it. So they found that human trafficking, child abuse, and anti-vax were very common amongst these groups. So they wanted to use that as a platform, or to build a narrative around. So from what he was saying, he was saying that the Q movement started literally as a psyop by this data analytics team on the Trump side. But then what I also feel at the same time, I believe that, especially when you start to, put them on the pedestal, it's way too much. But the same token, I think that it's given permission slips to more of the white hats to come out more.
No, I agree. I can see that.
Now there's more collective consensus that wants it to happen. And so that's given them more leverage, not just literally, but energetically, spiritually, emotionally, to carry that out. And then he made a couple of good executive orders that I feel other presidents could also utilize, like he did. Trump made an executive order against the human trafficking. An executive order against.
There's no doubt that. And I guess at the end of the day, it gets that every one of those people, Trump included, and whoever, a white hat or a black hat in NSA, they're still people. They're just like us, regardless of what they've been exposed to or have access to. They still have their doubts. They still, I mean, and then if you look at the level of compartmentalization, because I always ask myself, and I used to ask my stepfather, I was a lot less informed in my teens when I knew him. He was with the CIA for 25 years.
Wow.
How do they keep people? He'd tell me stuff about how do they keep people from talking about it? I mean, you're talking about a huge amount of information, underwater bases, underground bases, space technology, visitations, treaties with ET. I mean, you're talking about space travel. You're talking about all of this information. How are they able to keep it locked down? It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it's definitely extremely well bureaucratically laid and monitored internally. I mean, there was I was actually through Preston Nichols that I broke one of my memory seals about my abduction upstate. Me and Preston and Duncan Cameron, who worked both for the Montauk Project, we became pretty good friends for a while, which was a whole other story in itself. And but it was in 2007 that when I was at Preston's house upstate New York, and Preston passed away like 2 years ago, fortunately. And so did Duncan Cameron in a similar time period. And when I was at Preston's house, he made a special sound system that was a very unique sound system. He had taken one of the circuit boards and piece of technology that was part of the psychotronic technology at Montauk, and he combined it with the sound system that also used a sacred geometric pattern of magnets in the speakers, because he found that the pattern of magnets was more important, that you could actually create a whole other field of energy when you're hearing music, and that would actually create a feedback between you and the magnetic system. And yeah, it was a very, very trippy experience. Like he put a record on it, and it sounded like we were in the middle of an orchestra, like live.
Can you? What are you doing Sunday?
I'm open. I'm just busy after 5, but I'm from 5 to 7. I'm busy.
Well, I don't normally work weekends, but I got a couple of people coming on. These are Eastern times at 10. Probably go 10 to 11:30. I don't know. So you're busy after 5. How about like 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 be fine. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put you in, and we can go until you have to leave. Is that cool?
Okay. Sounds
good.
Yeah,
because you got too much to offer, man. You're a key dude and cool guy too. And there's so many things that could be. There's so many things that could be connected, and we could get a little more cohesion in our understanding. I can see a lot of places to go with it. I got a show in 4 minutes. I'm gonna have to send him a note. Tell him I'll be a little bit late. And we're going to have Franco Di Nicola. Speaking of Intel, probably the to me it's the I align with it. I resonate with it more than anybody else's. I mean, it's interesting. He has full memory from the womb. He has had full recall of several incarnations on other planets, and he works with an energy complex every single day and has for years. He was part of Collective Evolution when they started. And he just has excellent real-time intel. So we're going to spend the next 2 hours with him, and then we have another show after that with Crystal Pardo, and we'll see Stephen again at 3 o'clock Eastern on Sunday.
Awesome, brother.
Okay, brother.
Yeah, if anybody wants to find me, I'm on Facebook as well under my name. I'm the only one with my name on YouTube. And also email. I can always, you can always give it out later.
Okay, man. All right.
Much love to you guys.
All right.